The cinema of Romania is the art of motion picture making within the nation of Romania by Romanian filmmakers abroad. As with much of the world's early cinema, the ravages of time have left the mark upon Romanian film prints. Tens of titles have been destroyed or lost for good. For these films, only memories, articles and photos published in the newspapers of the time have remained. Since 1965, Arhiva Națională de Film has made serious efforts to reconstruct the obscure history of the beginnings of Romanian cinema. In parallel with the publication of memoirs and private research undertaken by great lovers of cinema, such as film critics Ion Cantacuzino and Tudor Caranfil, together with the directors Jean Mihail and Jean Georgescu, Romanian films have won Best Short Film at Cannes in 2004 and 2008 with Traffic, a Megatron. Romanian cinema achieved prominence in the 2000s with the appearance of such films as The Death of Mr. Lazarescu, directed by Cristi Puiu, and 4 Months, 3 Weeks and 2 Days, directed by Cristian Mungiu. The latter, according to Variety, bullshit further proof of Romania's new prominence in the film world. Beginnings. The history of cinema in Romania started before 1900, pushed by film screenings which helped arouse public curiosity towards the new invention, and enthusiastic cameramen began making films out of passion for the newly discovered art. Due to the rudimentary technical conditions, the early films were actualities, very short one-shot scenes capturing moments of everyday life. The first cinematographic projection in Romania took place on the 27th of May 1896, less than 5 months after the first public film exhibition by the Lumiere brothers on the 28th of December 1895 in Paris. In the Romanian exhibition, a team of Lumiere brothers employees screened several films, including the famous La ravages en garde Ciotat. The event was arranged by Edwin Sherman, the impresario of Adelina Patti and Eleonora Jews, and was hosted by the French-language newspaper L'Independence Roumanie. Misu Vacarescu, a journalist for L'Independence Roumanie, noted that there took place a representation of the miracle of the century, initially an elite attraction. Permanent screenings both in the building of L'Independence Roumanie and in other locations helped bring the ticket price down, and cinema became a popular spectacle in Bucharest. The next year, in 1897, the French cameraman Paul Menu shot the first film set in Romania, The Royal Parade, on the 10th of May 1897, showing King Carol I mounted, taking his place on the boulevard to head the parade. He continued by filming other 16 news items over the following 2 months, but only 2 survive today, as near 551 and 552 in the Lumiere catalogue. Menu's first Romanian films were presented on the 8th of June to the 23rd of June 1897, including images of the floods at Galati, Romanian Navy vessels on the Danube, and scenes from the Baniza Hippodrome. However, by 1898 public interest in cinema started fading, so Paul Menu offered his camera for sale. The camera was bought by Dr. Gheorghe Marinescu, who became the first Romanian filmmaker, realizing a series of short medically themed films between 1898 and 1899. Gheorghe Marinescu, together with cameraman Constantin M. Popescu, made in 1898 the first scientific film in the world, Walking Difficulties in Organic Hemiplegia. In a letter to Dr. Marinescu from the 29th of July 1924, speaking about these films, Auguste Lumiere acknowledges that, unfortunately, few scientists followed the path you opened. His films were considered lost until 1975, when a TV reporter named Cornel Rusu discovered them in a metal cabinet in a hospital bearing the famous doctor's name. Starting in 1906, in Macedonia, the Romanian monarchy brothers made a career with the social and ethnographic-themed actualities. Film screenings resumed in Bucharest in 1905 at various locations, as the Edison, the Afori, the Lyric Theatre, and Circul Sidoli. In May 1909, the first theatre in Romania built especially for exhibiting films, Volta, was opened on Doamnei Street in Bucharest. Transylvania, then part of Austria-Hungary, had already had its first movie theatre in Brasov since 1901. Volta was followed starting with the next year by others, such as Blériot on Serinda Street, Bristol, Apollo and Venus. The programs consisted of actualities and short, little films with actors. The films gradually increased in running time, eventually developing into newsreels and fiction films. Fictional Romanian silent films. The first Romanian fiction films are wrapped in an aura of legend, an investigation regarding the beginnings of Romanian cinema, published in an insert of the newspaper Cuvântul in December 1933, mentions that in 1911 an arrangement of a play for the cinema, Papisa, was produced by the cameramen Nicolae Barbalian and Micheli in collaboration with the head of the actors' troupe, Marinescu. At the same time, Victor Eftimu, in collaboration with Emil Galeanu, wrote a film script which they offered for free to a certain Georgescu. The resultant film, called Dragostila Mănăstirea du Oltwen, shown only in 1914, played for just 8 days. This was despite the fact that the film was composed merely of shots taken during 2 rehearsals for the role, attended by Tony Bulandra and Mario Aravoiculescu, the rest of the film being taken up by intertitles and long letters. The first Romanian fiction film was Amor Fatal, starring Lucia Sturza, Tony Bulandra and Aurel Barbalian, actors from the National Theatre Bucharest. The film was directed by Grigore Brezianu, a director from the same theatre and the son of the great actor Ion Brezianu. The film played between 26th and the 30th of September 1911 at the Apollo Cinema. On the 7th of November 1911, the film insert Marguerite premiered. It was based on Victor Eftimu's poem, and in fact showed scenes filmed in different locations in the country for the completion of the play with the same name that was playing at the National Theatre Bucharest. It was what today would be called a magic lantern show. Aristide Demetriade and Grigore Brezianu directed. Aristide Demetriade appeared in the role of Fat Frumos. This film, theatre hybrid, was well received by spectators of the day. In December 1911, the theatrical magazine Rampa published a note under the heading "The Cinema in the Theatre," indicating that the Maestro Notera is in the course of making a patriotic work recreating the Romanian War of Independence on film, so that today's generations might learn the story of the battles of 1877, and for future generations a live tableau of Romanian bravery will remain. As a result, the director of the Bucharest branch of the Gaumont Paris studio, Raymond Pellerin, announced the premiere of his film Razboiled in 1877 to 1878, scheduled for the 29th of December 1911. A film made in haste, with a troupe of second-hand actors and with the help of General Constantinescu, who commanded a division at Pitești, from whom he had obtained the extras needed for the war scenes. Razboiled in 1877 to 1878 was screened a day before by the prefect of the capital's police, who decided that it did not correspond with historic fact. Consequently, the film was confiscated and destroyed. Raymond Pellerin was declared persona non grata and he left for Paris, while the collaborationist general saw himself move to another garrison as a means of discipline. On 5 May 1912, the magazine Flaccara brought to its readers' attention the fact that, as it is known, a few artists have founded a society with the goal of producing a film about the War of Independence. Such an undertaking deserves to be applauded. The initiators were a group of actors: Constantin Notara, Aristide Dimitriade, V. Toninu, Ion Brezianu, and Sorianus P. Lisiu, as well as the young Grigor Brezianu, associate producer and the creative force behind the whole operation. Since a large amount of money was needed for the production, they also brought into this effort Leon Popescu, a wealthy man and owner of the Lyric Theatre. The group received strong backing from government authorities, with the army and all necessary equipment being placed at its disposal, plus military advisors. The cameras and their operators were brought from abroad, and the print was prepared in Parisian laboratories. Could Grigor Brezianu have been the film's director? No source from the time gives credence to such a hypothesis. On the contrary, they present him as initiator, producer of the film, beside members of the National Theatre and Leon Popescu. Furthermore, it appears that it was he who attracted the financier of the entire undertaking. In 1985, the film critic Tudor Karanfil discovered among Aristide Dimitriade's papers his director's notebooks for Independent Romania, unequivocally confirming that he was the film's director. Thus, the film's production crew was as follows: producers, Leon Popescu, Aristide Dimitriade, Grigor Brezianu, Constantin Notara, Pascal Vidrișu. Screenwriters, Petra Lisiu, Constantin Notara, Aristide Dimitriade, Corneliu Moldovianu. Director, Aristide Dimitriade. Cinematographer, Frank Danielsu. Makeup and hairstylist Pepe Maghaur. On 2 September 1912, at the Afori Cinema, the largest movie theatre in Bucharest, the premiere of Independent Romania took place. Despite all its shortcomings as the theatrical game of the actors, the errors of an army of extras uncontrolled by direction which provoked unintended laughter in some scenes and rendered dramatically limp those of the beginning. The film was well received by spectators, being shown for several weeks. Through this realization, through the dimensions of its theme, through the distribution method chosen, through the genuine artistic intentions, through its professional editing, the creation of this film can be considered Romania's first step in the art of cinematography. And yet he who had realized this work, the man who kept the whole team together, the theatre director Grigor Brezianu, was left disappointed. The press of the time made ostentatious mention of Leon Popescu, who financed the film and made sure to distance the other financiers. Buying the part, no such praise was heaped on the artistic makers of the film. This caused producer Grigor Brezianu to say in an interview given to the magazine Rampa and published on 13 April 1913, "My dream would have been to build a large film studio. I have come to believe that this is impossible. First of all, we are missing a large capital investment. Without money we cannot rival the foreign studios. A studio, according to our financiers, is something outside art, something in the realm of agriculture of the sea. Hence I have abandoned this dream with great regret." But Leon Popescu, after the appearance of certain products allegedly of the Romanian cinema, filmed by the Pathé Frères studio and featuring second-hand actors, in fact, these were a mixture of foreign films with scenes shot in which Romanian actors appeared, known as cinema sketches, responded with a wide-ranging offensive plan, forming the film d'Art Leon Popescu Society in 1913. collaborating with the troupe of Mario Voiculescu, which included actors sympathetic to Popescu. They managed to put on the market the following films: Amorul Unei Printis, Ratsburnaria, Urge Siriasca, Setatia Nemchluit Spinal, with all but the penultimate proving to be well below expectations. Notably, in 1913, there appeared another Romanian film, Hotelul Razbuna, directed by Aristide Dumitriade, who that same year directed another film, Shesisi Ujak Bill. The film was financed by the director, with substantial help from Professor Gheorghe Arion. The 40-minute film received favorable reviews and enjoyed great success. Today only one reel remains at the ANF, taking up a minute of projection time. Happily, all the actors can be seen in close-up. The film's producer was Gheorghe Arion, its director and editor was Aristide Dumitriade, Frank Daniel, who was the cinematographer, and it starred Aristide Dumitriade, Andrei Popovici, Mario Arasinski, Akhavici Cosmin, Nicolae Grigorescu, Petra Bulandra and Romuald Bulfinski. At the end of 1914, the Leon Popescu Society merged with the Sapito Society with the aim of importing small-sized projectors and at the same time of renting films produced by the Mario Voiculescu company to third parties. During the First World War, film production was mainly directed toward documentaries and newsreels. The few Romanian cameramen were mobilized, and during the retreat to Moldova all film cameras in the country were saved. His Majesty Ferdinand I was filmed on the front, together with the generals Constantin Prezan and Alexandru Avrescu, while Queen Marie was filmed in hospitals, easing the suffering of patients. Few sequences remain of the thousands of meters filmed. Some of these were later used in the film Ekaterina Teodoru, produced in 1930. After World War I, internationally, film production developed in accordance with the interest of businessmen in the new industry. New studios endowed with good equipment and specialists well trained in the new technology appeared. Directors and actors known to the public at large were attracted to work in the new industry, as were renowned screenwriters. Markets were opened for finished film products, which through a market-tested formula managed to bring profits and finance new productions. Film industries with lavish financial resources came to dominate the market, decimating weak national cinemas. In this context, an active Romanian film industry was but a dream. The approximately 250 movie theaters then in existence in Romania could not even generate the amount of money needed for one film, with profits out of the question. Specialist training for film crew members was non-existent, and Romanian actors were unknown abroad, so the work could not be sold outside Romania. Neither did the state accord any attention to film production. Its only preoccupation in this regard was to collect the tax on screenings, which provided a fairly consistent revenue stream, its proceeds at one time amounting to two-thirds of total revenue derived from this type of tax. To all these were added two other catastrophes. Leon Popescu died in 1918, after which his studio on the grounds of the Lyric Theatre burned down. Miraculously, of all the films, only one was saved, a copy of Independent Romania. In 1920, a film studio, Saul, began producing Pivalura Alferisa, which starred the Hungarian actress Lida Puti, and the Romanian actors Maria Filotti, Ion Manolescu, Gheorghe Storan, Alexandru Mailescu and Tansi Cutavabroții. It was directed by Dolly A. Sigeti and the script was based on a play by K. Williamston. The film was never completed. Nevertheless, a few sequences were shown in the form of a trailer. The year 1921 marked the production of the first Romanian animated film, more precisely of the first Romanian animated cartoon, conceived by Aurel Petrescu and called Pacala pe Luna. Surprisingly, all the animated films of this director and artist, which he was producing into the sound era, are lost. Showing foresight, Aurel Petrescu created an album with about 80 stills, today owned by the ANF, and from which we can get an idea of the techniques used by Petrescu in animating. Some stills have on their edge the black strip denoting recorded sound, which has led researchers to confirm that in his last phase, Petrescu produced sound cartoons. Jean-Michel also entered the turbulent milieu called the cinema at this time. He was one of the pioneers of Romanian cinema and began his career through his participation as assistant director under the German Alfred Holm, director of Igancuza din IATAC. The film, shot on locations such as Mogisoiu Palace, Pazaria Monastery, and Monovici Villa, was based on a script by Victor Belderman, in turn written after a novel by Radu Rossetti. It was a Spera Film Berlin and Radar Film Bucharest co-production. It starred Dorina Hella, Elvira Popescu, Ion Covescu, Mitzi Vesera, Tansy Elvers, Ekaterina Vani, Leon Lefta, Petra Sturza, Petrescu Musca, and premiered on 30 December 1923. Sadly, the film is lost today. The lack of a steady supply of financial resources was the constant obsession permanently plaguing Romanian film directors. The absence of Leon Popescu, a wealthy man ready to invest his earnings in film production, caused directors and the few actors passionate about the new art to seek financiers who were equally passionate and disinterested. This is how the young actor-director Jean Georgescu found a retiree in the year 1925 who, for more or less artistic reasons, invested his savings in the production of a film called Nabadal Cleopatra. Ion Sahayan made his directing debut on this film, which starred Jean Georgescu, Ion Fintestianu, Apop Martian, Alexandru Giagaru N. Sorianus Brandus Agrozavescu, and others. It premiered on 5 October 1925 at the Lux Theatre. In the same fashion, Jean Georgescu produced the film Mulyana Pentru Ozi in a Bucharest cabaret. Since the owner wanted to advertise the building, Jean-Michel directed Leah on a screenplay by Misha Filotti financed by a German businessman who wanted to fulfill the wish of his wife, well-known actress Lily Flor. Likewise, he made Povara at Vienna in 1928 with the money of a lady who wished to see her name listed in the credits as production director, at the request of a firm that sold coffee, radios, etc. Marcel Blossoms and Micu Kellerman directed the film Les Shin Harim. On other occasions, due to lack of money, film enthusiasts would form a cooperative. One would contribute the camera, the other the laboratory, the other the script, the other the direction. The actors were easily obtained due to the desire to see themselves on screen. And finally they had to find a creditor willing to lend them some money on the assurance that it would be returned to him after the great success of the premiere. This is how there appeared under Jean-Michel's direction Pacat and Monase. The actor Gita Popescu directed Legenda Salordu Cruci, Vigini Maluian Napasta. Jean Georgescu directed Maural Murat, financed by collecting money from friends. The attraction of the screen and the real desire to make a name for oneself in the new art led to the foundation of several film schools. Students' tuition fees paid for the production of certain films. Of course, the students were unpaid paid actors, which allowed for widespread distribution. The clip of films studio produced. With this form of financing, the films AdiJapan, Haiduchi, Siokoi and, later, Insula Serpilor, the penultimate one featuring an attempt at sound, and the last one being a talkie. On the other hand, a film production society called Sorama, generally specializing in documentaries and newsreels, produced the 1928 film Symphonia Dragostea, directed by Ion Sahayan. With the director Niculescu Bruma, they produced the film Ekaterina Teodorou, in which there appear clips filmed during the First World War of the great personages of the time. The mother of Ekaterina Teodorou appeared as herself. These films were produced in Vienna studios. Other films from this period include Gogolikasi, FR, and Happily, the first Romanian animated film preserved archivally. From a technical point of view, making these films was very difficult. If a film camera could be obtained from newsreel photographers, the print was prepared with them also. The problem of finding a set to use was very difficult, with the director searching for a set among all nearby warehouses, granaries, stables or dance halls. Sometimes filming was done in different apartments or in homes owned by those willing to help. Lights were usually gathered up from photographers' studios, often due to overcrowding in residences. Films would accidentally display a light to the cameraman and his camera reflected in a mirror or a piece of furniture. The best locations were those offered by various theaters on occasion that work take place at night. Another solution was for them to shoot interiors outdoors. They built their interiors on sets exposed to sunlight and built on a platform that could be rotated and thus make full use of sunlight. The technical crews, in contrast to those found abroad, had to be jacks of all trades, yet are ultimately workmen. The cameraman would also prepare the print in the laboratory. The director might be a makeup artist as well, the producer a prop man, an actor an assistant director. As for distribution, this depended on the actor's willingness to work for free. To all this was added the fact that negatives were scarce, meaning that sequences were filmed in one take only, regardless of the quality of the outcome. The lack of innovation in the field, due to a lack of materials and sometimes of information, caused these suffering devotees of the new muse to play things by ear, with many films showing weak artistry, even if the conditions in which these people worked and created did not allow them to reach a level equal to wider contemporary standards on a technical level. They still managed to record a pretty page in the annals of Romanian film history, despite all the inherent artistic lapses at the beginning. On the other hand, the intellectuals of the day still considered cinematographic art to be a lowly sideshow, not according it its due importance. It is true that the specialty press was also rather thin on content and sometimes uninspired. In 1928, Tudor Vianu wrote in the article, "A Movie Theatre and the Radio Broadcaster in the Politics of Culture." The cinematic press created first of all in order to sustain the interests of cinematographic capitalism. There is no actor, no matter how mediocre, not to have been proclaimed a first-rate star by the cinematic press, and there is no film, no matter how boring or mundane, not to have been declared an incomparable achievement. At the end of the 1920s and beginning of the 1930s, cinema entered the consciousness of certain Romanian writers and cultural figures, such as Tudor Vianu's Liviu Rebreanu's Victor Eftimu, Camil Petrescu and Dimitri Gusti, who all became aware of this new mode of expression and culture. As Rebreanu observed in 1930, in this period the film critic D.I. Sucianu made his debut, first in newspapers, then in 1929 in radio. Later on, the critic Ion Filotti Cantacuzino also started broadcasting. It is worth noting what the princess poet Elena Vacarescu said in 1930 about the importance of the seventh art. Having great power at its disposal, the cinema should work hard toward the greatest good of peoples and what brings them together, that is, toward peace.